In the years before the rising of the sun, when the continent of Middle-earth was illuminated by the stars in the sky, the elves Imin, Tata, and Enel awoke in the lands of Cuivienen. The last of the elf fathers to stir from his slumber, Enel formed the Nelyar, the third and largest elf clan, hosting 74 from the original population of 144, while the Minyar had 14 and the Tatyar 56. Leading the Nelyar alongside his wife Enelie, their clan formed strong bonds of kinship and were renowned for their love of music, calling themselves the Lindar, meaning singers. As time went on, some of the elves started vanishing, taken by the Dark Lord Melkor, who reigned in Middle-earth, twisting and corrupting his captives to create the subservient orc race. Wary of the foul deeds committed against their people, the elves were initially suspicious when approached by the Vala Orome, but eventually trusted him enough to explore his offer of passage to the undying lands of Aman, an enchanted paradise for the immortal races of the world. Selecting Ingwe, Finwe, and Elwe as representatives of the three clans, the ambassadors followed Orome on a scouting mission west, traveling across the continent and over the Sea of Beregair, before returning with wondrous tales of this blessed land. Although the Minyar clan was united in its commitment to the Great Journey, both the Tatyar and Nelyar were divided, resulting in the first sundering of the Elves, where the Eldar departed while the Avari remained in their eastern homeland. After discussing the issue, the Minyar, who became the Vanyar, were the first to proceed, followed by half the Tatyar, who became known as the Noldor. Yet the Nelyar lingered, debating the issue longer than the others, with roughly 2/3 agreeing to follow Elwe into the west, becoming the Teleri clan. Stories say some of those Nelyar did not truly wish to leave, but also could not bear to be parted from their kinsmen, and so reluctantly joined the Great Journey, prompting the Noldor to assert most of the Teleri were Avari in their hearts. In addition to their fondness for music, the Teleri also loved the sea, an interest which served them well throughout their travels, building rafts to cross over rivers and larger ships to pass over the Sea of Rune, often under the direction of Círdan the shipwright, who was at the forefront of these projects. Once arrived on the shores of Middle-earth, the Vanyar and Noldor boarded the island ship Tol Eressëa and left the continent on the first passage west, whereas the Teleri suffered a number of delays, becoming fractured along the way. Upon arriving at the Anduin River, some of their people grew afraid of the tall misty mountains before them and refused to cross over, instead remaining under the leadership of Lenwe to become the Nandor, meaning those who go back. Having already fractured once, the Teleri again faced crisis when their leader Elwe fell into a trance upon meeting the beautiful Maya Melian, whose magic affected them both. Frozen in place for many years, the Teleri halted their westward journey to search for their lost leader. During this time, the Maya Ose appeared before those who dwelt on the coast, teaching them sea lore and music until the island fairy returned, granting them one last chance to reach the undying lands. Again, the Teleri fractured, with some completing the journey by following Elwe's brother Olwe to become the Falmari, meaning wave folk, while the Sindar or Grey Elves refused to leave Middle-earth. Amongst the Sindar who remained behind, the Eglath, or Forsaken, settled in a nearby forest to continue the search for their lost leader, while others became the Falathrim, meaning coast people, living near the sea. As they approached the continent of Aman, the Falmari asked that the island fairy remain a short distance from the coast, so they could listen to the beautiful music of Ose, who in turn grew fond of their people, anchoring the island in place, thereby forcing them to remain upon Tol Eressëa. Yet in time, the Falmari grew mournful, wishing to complete the journey so they might visit the rest of their elven kinsmen, and so the Valar ordered Ose to let them leave. Teaching the Falmari to make new types of ships so they might reach the eastern shore of the continent, they settled under High King Olwe, mostly in the city of Alqualonde and island Tol Eressëa. Back in Middle-earth, the Falathrim established the Havens of the Falas, where they built the cities of Brithombar and Eglarist, while other Sindar moved north to become the Mithrim, meaning Greyfolk, living in the lands of Heathlam. As for the Eglath, they became the Lathrim, meaning people of the fence, when Elwe awoke from his trance and founded the realm of Doriath, ruling as King Thingol alongside his wife Queen Melian, who created an invisible fence to protect their people. Further east, some of the Nandor became the Sylvan or Wood Elves, content to live as tribal forest dwellers, while others followed Denethor to finally cross over the Misty Mountains, becoming the Lyquendi or Green Elves, settling in Ossiriand. Although the Sindar and Nandor lived in peace for many years, tragedy struck when the Dark Lord Melkor launched an attack against the Undying Lands, destroying the Two Trees of Light, killing King Finwë, and stealing the 3 Silmaril jewels of Feanor. When Melkor, renamed Morgoth, then fled to Middle-earth, he was pursued by the Noldor, who declared the War of Great Jewels upon him, with their most radical faction swearing the Oath of Feanor, vowing to recover the Silmarils at any cost. As a result of this lust for vengeance, Feanor's faction committed the first kinslaying, slaughtering the Falmari Elves when they refused to give their ships for the voyage east. Though the Elves of Alqualonde defended themselves with hunting bows, repelling the enemy 3 times, Feanor's well-armed warriors soon secured victory when they were reinforced by other well-meaning Noldor, who sought to defend their kinsmen and did not know how the conflict began. Bringing their war to Middle-earth, many of the Noldor settled in Heathlam, where they mixed with the local Mithrim, but as the fighting intensified and Morgoth's influence spread, these lands were lost and their population slaughtered. Soon enough, the cities of the Falas also fell, leaving the Falathrim to board their ships and retreat to the Isle of Valar, while a smaller portion sailed further south, establishing themselves upon Edelond. Although many of the Falathrim and Mithrim were lost to the Dark Lord, the Lathrim suffered a more tragic fate, as they were betrayed by their own kind, losing their realm to the Noldor sons of Feanor, who committed the second kinslaying when they learned one of the Silmarils was held in Doriath. The Silmaril, however, was taken by Elwing, great-granddaughter to Thingol, and brought to a refugee settlement in the mouths of Sirion, only to be pursued by the sons of Feanor, who committed a third kinslaying against the Sindar and Noldor in the area. Learning of the devastation inflicted by Morgoth upon the peoples of Beleriand, the Valar decided to lead their armies to Middle-earth and put an end to the suffering. Though they were joined by the Maiar, Vanyar, and remaining Noldor of Aman, the Falmari merely provided ships and refused to fight, as they still resented the Noldor of Middle-earth, who slaughtered their people. After the defeat of Morgoth in the War of Wrath and reshaping of the continent, many of the remaining Sindar, Lyquendi, and Noldor settled in the Grey Havens of the coast, while other Sindar traveled east, re-establishing contact with the Sylvan to form Lothlorien and the Woodland Realm. In time, these settlements came into contact with the long-lost tribe of Avari from the Far East, who at last migrated west, where those belonging to the Nelyar clan were happy to meet and learn from their Teleri kinsmen in the Sylvan and Sindar, eventually mixing together. Although they were most commonly called the Teleri Elves, they also earned a number of nicknames over the long years of their lives, reflecting their various interests and skills, becoming known as the Musicians of the Shore, the Free, the Wanderers, the Elves of the Sea, the Sailors, the Arrow Elves, the Ship Friends, the Lords of the Gulls, the Blue Elves, the Pearl Gatherers, and the people of Elwë. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Warden of the X, Sir Jeremiah Ironside of House Cumsia, Warden of the X, Chris Wilder, The Crimson Shadow, Ishmam Ahmed of Shamiriana, and Feanor Nathan. If you'd like to help the channel, you can sign up for membership through the YouTube join button, buy merchandise from the store page, or go to patreon.com/civilizationx, where you can get early access to videos, vote on future content, and access the members and Patreon only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.